Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, my name is Celeste. I like to make videos about conspiracy theories, scary stories, paranormal experiences, or even true crime. So if that's something you're interested in, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and go ahead and leave me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. For today's video, we are going to be talking about 5 paranormal occurrences that I found on the internet that are actually true. Starting with number 5, the haunted eBay painting. So there is this painting painted in 1972 by Bill Stoneham, and it was attracting media attention on eBay. There was one person who was wanting to stay anonymous trying to sell this picture, and according to them, this picture was haunted and caused a lot of paranormal occurrences within their house. As people looked at the ad, viewers said that they reported supernatural experiences after seeing the hands piece for too long. One person actually reported hearing strange sounds like banging when she was looking at the listing. Other people reported being violently sick and even fainting. According to the description on the eBay post, at the time we wondered a little why a seemingly perfectly fine painting would be discarded like that. Today, we don't. One morning, our 4.5-year-old daughter claimed that the children in the picture were fighting and coming into the room during the night. This is when the father of the young girl set up a motion-sensitive camera in her room to show his daughter there was nothing to be afraid of. The figures seemed to slightly dissolve in a way, and it was said that they would leave the painting and move around. Eventually, the eBay auction ended and the painting finally sold for $1,025. The painting was on display for a little while, but it is now currently in storage and the owner is not going to be selling it anytime soon. Number 4, the Summerwind Mansion. The Summerwind Mansion house was built in 1916 on the shores of West Bay Lake in Land O'Lakes, Wisconsin by Robert Patterson Lamont. The first paranormal experience here are legends saying holes in the basement door were the result of Lamont firing his pistol at what he believed to be an intruder. That was until the bullets passed right through it. After Lamont died, the Summerwind house actually spent some time being vacant before a couple known as Arnold and Ginger Hinshaw moved in with their children in 1970. It wasn't long after they moved in when they began to experience strange phenomenon. This included mumbling voices in empty rooms, doors and windows opening and closing by themselves, and an apparition of a woman. The worst was yet to come. They ended up discovering a human corpse in the hidden closet compartment, and this is when things got worse. Arnold began to have nervous breakdowns, and his family would huddle together and cry. During this time, his wife Ginger actually attempted suicide. Eventually, Arnold was sent away for treatment, and Ginger moved her and the children out of the house. They only lived there for 6 months until they moved out. It is said that the house is haunted by a ghost of an 18th century British explorer named Jonathan Carver. In June of 1988, lightning struck the abandoned mansion and it ended up burning down to the ground. All that's left on this property is the stone foundation and the chimney, which is slowly being swallowed by the forest. Number 3, Bridgeport Haunted House. There's a small house on Lindley Street, Bridgeport, Connecticut, and it is one of the most documented poltergeist cases in history. There was a family who lived there, a man named Gerald and a woman named Laura Gooden. They were married and they adopted a little girl, and her name was Marcia. She was a very unhappy little girl. Shortly after her adoption, around 1973, the couple began to experience very unusual behavior in their home. They claimed there was an evil presence. Rooms were ransacked with open drawers and items thrown throughout the house. The disturbances escalated, and in November of 1974, Gooden called police to his home. There were numerous official Bridgeport police accounts of all sorts of unexplained phenomenon that the police investigators saw and heard. There was pictures jumping off the walls. A chair, a TV, and a refrigerator levitated off the floor, and objects on shelves flew through the air and crashed. It was even said that there was a cat that would sing. This is one of the houses that paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were actually called in to investigate. They believe that the disturbances were actually centered around the adopted 10-year-old little girl. They said that she was unhappy and angry, and this attracted the evil spirits. The Bridgeport police finally announced that the haunting was a hoax, and he said that the little girl actually confessed that it was her making the furniture move. However, many people who experienced the paranormal occurrences in this house claimed that a lot of them happened when the little girl was not around. To this day, we don't really know what was going on in that house. Number 2, the Bye-Bye Man. The Bye-Bye Man is based on a real Wisconsin ghost story. Robert Damon Schneck had a close friend who was actually living in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin in the fall of 1990. He lived in a house with 2 other friends, and they actually found a Ouija board inside the attic. They decided to conduct a series of experiments with the board to test the unconscious effect attributed to the ghostly movement of the planchette. They wanted to see if it really worked. They used it in a variety of different ways, including writing the answers down instead of saying them out loud, and playing blindfolded in the dark while one of them watched with a flashlight to record the answers. They ended up making consistent contact with an entity that called itself the Spirit of the Board, and it seemed to control and limit other entities it allowed them to communicate with. It turned out that none of them were actually spirits that had ever lived before. They were more of a free-ranging consciousness. Each entity seemed to have individual personalities expressed by the words that they used and the way they moved the planchette. The spirits claimed that they didn't want them talking to any other spirits, just to protect them from any dangerous ones. However, the 3 friends continued to push to speak to other entities, specifically ones that were living, so that they can actually verify some information that they're getting from this board. Eventually, they began talking to a spirit that was alive, and the spirit's name was the Bye-Bye Man. It was an orphan born in Louisiana who eventually turned into a murderer. He would hop on trains to get around, and along with a companion called Gloomsinger, which he had made himself from the eyes and tongues of his victims. It was said that he would find his victims and kill them and add their organs to a bag he carried around called the Sack of Gore. Number 1, the Black-Eyed Children. This is one of those stories that's more well known in the paranormal community. There have been a lot of occurrences of people encountering the Black-Eyed Children, and they feel extremely uncomfortable and scared whenever they come in contact with them. But we are going to talk about the very first experience of the Black-Eyed Children and what actually happened. They approach your car or knock on your front door at night. They ask to come in. They need a ride or need to use your phone. They look like normal children until you can get a good look at their eyes and they're completely black. They demand to come in. They get very pushy and expressing frustration that you won't do what they ask. But you can't shake that growing sense of dread that something is very wrong. The earliest known encounter with the Black-Eyed Children happened in 1996 in Texas. There was a journalist known as Brian Bethel sitting in his car outside of a local cable company, and he was using the light of a nearby theater marquee to write a check for the overnight drop box. This is when there was a knock on his driver's side window. As he looked out, there were 2 young boys. They were between the ages of 9 and 12. They were dressed in hooded pullovers and they stood outside. He rolled down the window expecting the kids to ask him for money. He would immediately feel the fear creeping in. He said one boy was at the window and he was a very olive-skinned, curly-headed young man. The other one was a red-headed, pale-skinned, freckled young man, and he stayed more in the back. The boy explained that they wanted to see Mortal Kombat, and that he had forgotten their money at home and if they can get a ride. Bethel felt the irrational fear getting worse. He ended up looking at the marquee and down at his clock, and he realized that the last showing of Mortal Kombat had already started, and if he did give the kids a ride anywhere, the movie would be over by the time they came back. Bethel realized that something just seemed off, and he hesitated and took a minute to reply to the boys. He was kind of looking around in his car, and next thing you know, when he looked up, he knew something was wrong. Both boys started staring at him with coal black eyes. He described it as the type of eyes you would see on an alien. He began to panic, and he apologized and made excuses why he couldn't help them. He immediately started rolling his window up and put his car in reverse. And this is when the boys said, "We can't come in unless you tell us it's okay. Let us in." Bethel began driving out of the parking lot, and as he looked behind him, the boys vanished. He explained that even if they had run, there was actually nowhere for the boys to hide. What would happen if Bethel had given these kids a ride? Or if someone else had opened their door and let the children into their home? If he would have let those children in his car, he might not be here today to tell us his story. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to press that subscribe button and the bell notification. That way you get notified when I post my next video. But until next time, I will see you guys. Bye.